Hello and welcome to an icon new video. Today we are going to be talking about Dr. Megalo. Now, this is probably one of the only few times where I will say, go away from this video if you haven't read it. Just type this into Google and find it immediately. Or if you don't want to do nerd things like reading, you can go ahead and look at this video from L Void. I don't care. Just use your think magnet of a brain and consume. Because we are only going to be talking about 3 things from this thing. Why only 3 things? Because those 3 things are the peakest of goddamn peaks. The rest of it is still very good, don't get me wrong, and I want you to read it your goddamn self. But there's 16 chapters of how the story should play out. And these 16 chapters are not included on how I will talk about it. I will talk about the fully fledged comics that are out. Which are the first comic, the Metatana prologue, and possibly my favorite piece of Undertale media that was ever released outside of Undertale itself, the Out of Character comic. So, let us strap in just a little bit and get this show on the road. So, what actually is Dr. Megalo? Well, it is an alternate universe of an alternate universe of Undertale. Or to be more specific, it is an alternate timeline of an alternate timeline of Undertale. Last time when I called Dusttale an alternate universe, people got pissy about it. I'm not doing that again. Undertale had an alternate timeline called Dusttale, in which suddenly Sans remember you are genocide and goes off the deep end killing every single person he loves. But now we have an alternate timeline from Dusttale, which, you know, he was called a megalomaniac. See what they did there, Doctor? Elphys? This is about Elphys. You know, side note, genuinely insane how one of my least favorite characters from Undertale became my favorite character in this. It's insane. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite AT now. Or AU. It's my favorite fan work of Undertale in general. Oh my god. And also, if you want to know why I don't like Elphys, commented, I guess I'll make a video on it eventually, but if you comment about it now, I'll make it earlier. But nevertheless, as I've already let slip, Undertale had an alternate timeline that had Sans be the genocider, and this alternate timeline has Elphys be it instead. That's probably how you spell Elphys. But the circumstances are very different. Instead of it just being Lamau Elphys knows now because it is instead its own lore explanation. The Amalgamates. Because for you see, it is explained that amalgamates have certain properties that allow them to remember resets. We already know that entities like Flowey can remember resets, but Flowey still can't remember a player's hard reset. However, amalgamates can. And that is something that Elphys figures out, and after getting some amalgamate juices from the amalgamates and putting it into a machine, the machine can then remember previous resets. And that is something Elphys immediately shows Sans. Because this comic goes with the theory that Sans is actually part of the science team, which is a theory I also believe but is never outright stated in Undertale, so it is a theory. It goes with that, look at you go. Now Elphys figures all of this shit out. Nothing is out of character. This is genuinely just good writing. And Sans is also perfectly written in this scene. And when I saw L Void's rendition of it, I wanted to kiss him on the mouth, but I don't have time to divulge everything because this is a whiteboard and I don't have a script for this. But the gist of it is, Sans absolutely schmoves on Elphys, absolutely town trots her. So Elphys has to work alone, and here is something that I very much love. In the next reset, Elphys is the first one to gain love. Why and how seems a bit out of character, you might think. No! For you see, Elphys made an invention that lets her also remember previous timelines. And then she tries to do something with Undyne, because Undyne is the one that can actually produce determination out of all the monsters. And so she runs an experiment on Undyne. However, said experiment has an accident which leads to Undyne's death and gives Elphys LV. 7 LV to be exact. Now, the narration over the accident makes it kind of seem like Elphys is already desperate and wants the experiment to fail so she gains the power. But in actuality, what I interpret this scene as is that Elphys, after seeing the accident, justifies herself, talks down to herself in a way that it was always meant to be this way when it in actuality wasn't, and this was only level 7 talking, because we already know that with every level we gain, it is easier to distance yourself, and that is what Alphys's brain does here. She distances herself from her morality and therefore thinks that deep inside she always wanted there to be an accident, when in reality I don't think there was supposed to be an accident from the get-go. Now, why do I like this way more than this over here? Well, for one, Alphys doesn't just randomly start committing genocide. First, it's an accident, and 7 levels worth of an accident. The higher the LV, the easier to distance yourself, and that is 7. So, that accident on the next reset becomes less of an accident and less of an accident. And suddenly, there must not be an accident anymore, because every single run the monsters go back inside of Alphys's true lab, isn't that right? So every time the monsters go into retreating, no one can save them from Alphys, and so Alphys starts murdering the monsters that fled to her until Alphys finally reaches level 99. So Alphys has the power to destroy the world a few times over at this point, and is also actively trying to snipe Frisk from beyond the timelines. And the first comic ends of just a really cool shot, where Sans has apparently joined Alphys. How did that happen? Well, you'll need to read it to find out. Fuck you. I don't care about your illiterate ass. Just read. Anyways, the Metaton prologue is up next. There's not much to this one, except that Metaton apparently got a little bit of amalgamate goo onto his diary, and now every time he writes in it, it just appears in every single timeline. So Metaton is kind of spoiling himself, but not really, because he can't write in there that he died, because he'd be dead. And so then Alphys lures him as well and kills him, even though he had the potential of not going, because, you know, he was talking to himself from another timeline, which is just unlucky. Poor Metaton. And then, we have arrived at my favorite. So, I don't want to do a normal recounting of events here, because I don't think it serves this comic. I just love it. The way it characterizes Sans in a very unique way, but also in a way that inherently makes sense with what we see of him in Undertale. The way it characterizes Papyrus. It's so good. It's so good. I've actually seen people complain about the way Papyrus is characterized. No! Just because it isn't canon doesn't mean it's bad. This is peak fiction, actually. Genuinely, I have never had more of an emotional reaction to an Undertale fan project. I am not that much of an emotional guy when it comes to fiction, okay? I barely ever have any sort of emotional feelings that aren't just, hey, I'm happy for them, or, that's unlucky. But right fucking here? Right here is where I felt shit. Alright? I felt shit. If you're not gonna read literally anything of this, right? If you're not gonna even check out any of the dubs, please, just this once, do me the favor, like and subscribe, but also, just do me the favor, read at least Out of Character, because it's so good. The way it interprets Sans and Papyrus, it's so unique, and I love it. And oh my god! I cannot sing its praises enough. I don't want to spoil it, because that'd put it away out of people's minds. Then people wouldn't fucking go there. I want you to read this! Or look at it in any sort of way. Elvoid has it dubbed. You watch Elvoid, right? You probably do. Deltarune memes my ass. Makes the greatest dub of all time. I think ultimately, just what I want to say about this, thank you to that one motherfucker who said I should look at it. I love you! And also, side note, to that one guy who just called me autistic on Tumblr, why? Fucking goddamn it. That was just rude. That's just rude. I have ADHD, and I will not take it any other way. But nevertheless, my fate goes absolutely goddamn hard. Cue the clown!